Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Tech with Jabs. This evening we have another special guest who we are hoping to basically just feed off from their pearls of wisdom. My next guest is an entrepreneur. He won the GQ Innovator of the Year, which is not an easy thing. He has managed to build up and co-found multiple successful platforms. And I'll just let him introduce himself. Ahren Posthumus. Please just give us a brief intro about yourself and just tell us what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. Hi, Jobs. Yeah, it's great to be here. It's great to connect. So you asked me to just tell a little bit about myself and what I do on a day-to-day basis. It's difficult to describe. Hey, I think what I do on a day-to-day basis is run around, trying to execute on opportunities, fight for some time to actually sit down and code, and yeah, I have a lot of meetings with investors. I have meetings with potential clients. I have meetings with just people for spaces that we're looking into. So my day has become, I went from coding, 99% of my time to really struggling to find a gap to actually sit down and code. And most of my time is unblocking other people, trying to think innovatively and trying to find new ways to solve problems. Yeah, that's kind of what I do on a day-to-day. Like I said, it's difficult to describe. It changes day to day, and it also changes on where my business is going. For example, Job Matcher, for example, is busy doing a capital raise at the moment. So I'll inevitably have to be doing a lot more conversations with investors during that time period. But as soon as we close, then we go into a build phase, and then I spend a lot more of my time busy getting involved in the build process and managing teams as well.
Awesome. Tell me something, Aaron. Did you ever imagine that you'd get to the point that you are at now? I mean, as a business, even as an individual.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I think that's something that you have to have as an entrepreneur is a built-in level of confidence. And I think what I always tell people is confidence and arrogance are two, it's a fine line between the two, but one of them is really good. You need to have confidence, you need to back yourself. And I think that's just in life. If you have the confidence to just tackle something with an inherent belief that you will be able to achieve it, you increase your likelihood of achieving it so much more than if you don't have that. But then if you cross the line where you're being arrogant, then obviously you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot as well, and people are going to look down negatively on that. But to answer your question, yes, I did. And in fact, I think that I'm at the start of my journey, and I really foresee and hope that there's a much bigger component to this, especially when we look at my two focuses now. And I know we're going to speak about it a bit later.
Yeah.
But Job Match and Project CUDA, we're trying to do a lot for the country.
Yeah.
And yeah, those need to succeed in my mind to get South Africa to where it needs to be. Um, and that, a lot of the time I think South Africans have a weird mentality. The only negative that South Africans have is that they don't celebrate success. It's
Yeah.
something that Americans have done in the past really well. When they see somebody else doing well, they cheer.
They
They get
jump.
so excited.
They do.
Everyone loves success. The
Yeah.
media takes up a story about a new unicorn or a new tech company doing well, or a new successes. Everybody cheers collectively for that. And one thing that I've noticed in South Africa is that we don't necessarily have that same mentality. A lot of people don't want others to achieve because they feel like it reflects poorly upon them, and that's not the truth. You don't succeed by having everyone else be not as good as you. You succeed by pushing other people to be as best as they can be, and you trying as hard as you can to catch up. And that's how everyone does better.
Yeah, you touched on some solid points. You're actually so right. People here in South Africa really, we do have the tendency of not properly celebrating our heroes. Let me do that. Let me call you guys our heroes. You know why I say that? Because have you noticed how the West, I think that's how they built it. I mean, you look at how big everything is because they celebrated literally whenever someone came up with
Yeah,
something big and huge, they
yeah,
made sure that the rest of the world, knew that this person was huge. And I think the more we do that, then really we start to
Yeah.
show the brilliance of our country. Because I must say, Aaron, really, when you look at it, and I'm sure you see it every day, South Africa has some of the most brilliant people in the world. But because we don't celebrate them enough, we almost make it seem
You
like
know
they're
how
not real.
often people forget that Elon Musk is South
I
Africa?
mean, exactly.
He's South African, and nobody is running out into the hills shouting that like he's one of us, you know,
Exactly.
because that's the first evidence of South Africa's mentality. Because um, people only find that out if they do some deep digging into him. I've
Exactly.
heard South African news and media stations refer to him as an American tech giant. I'm like, no, guys, he comes from
Mm,
here. Charlize
mm,
Theron is from here. Mark Shuttleworth is from here. You
exactly.
know, South Africa has incredible minds and we've done incredible things. We need to celebrate them, recognize them, and realize our own potential.
Exactly. And I mean, the people that you've actually just mentioned right now, Aaron, the breed of people. It's like I think that's the caliber that we actually produce, and I think we need to start to become more proud of that, because if we can market those skills,
Mm,
then we can sell them all over the world. And I mean, you look at the period that we're in
for
during the
sure.
pandemic. I mean, surely, this is the right time for us to show people how great and brilliant we are as South Africans. But yeah, but I mean, we could talk about that for days and
Another
days.
thing we need to ask ourselves is why did those people leave, right?
Good question.
Maybe they weren't being celebrated here. And if they
Yeah,
were, they may have stayed.
yeah, that's true. That is true. Because I mean, you look at these countries, these tech industries, and your Silicon Valleys, and even though the guys are moving out of California, etc., but you think about all
Mm,
these guys, and you think to yourself, Rome wasn't built in a day. So these tech industries that are
mm,
booming that side were built by hard work, guys that were actually founders and pushing, that believed in themselves and their ideas. So yeah, so on that note,
yeah.
and we're talking about ideas and apps and all
Mhm.
things tech. Tell us about Lockdown Pause. Many devs, as you know, build many apps. But why was Lockdown Pause so successful?
I think there's a few things that come into play here. One of the big reasons why I think Lockdown Bozo was so successful is because we started the entire conversation with how can we do something that is, first of all, different,
Mhm.
and second of all, useful.
Yeah,
So my business partner, Adam, and myself, and we started off as friends before we were business partners.
yeah,
When the lockdown hit, we started asking ourselves, or actually when Corona hit, we started asking ourselves, is there something that we can do um, around this? You know, we saw a lot of people busy building like Corona maps
yeah,
that basically they were heat maps or whatever. And that seemed to be what pretty much every developer or everyone who wanted to get involved or develop some technology around COVID, that seemed to be what they were doing. And we were like, oh, that's cool.
mm,
But first of all, I don't think it's really that useful.
mm,
There's some good trackers and some good maps out there. So there's no point in us doing something like that. Let's keep thinking about it. And then the president made his announcement about the tiered approach. And we were like, wow, this sounds like really confusing.
mm,
Sick, we've got our idea. Let's make this as easy as possible to understand. And we really just did it as an internal project. We had no anticipation of this thing blowing up. We
yeah,
spent no money on advertising. We weren't trying to make it a big thing. We were
yeah.
like, this is going to be a cool project. We basically didn't sleep for 4 days.
Is it nice?
Um, yeah, literally just didn't sleep for 4 days. My friend invited me to visit him. He's just a little bit outside of Cape Town.
Mm,
He invited me to visit him for a bit of a holiday. And I remember his face because like the beach and we had like a little bit of a nice time. And we came back to the house and I was like, cool guys, I want to work now. Like
yeah,
that's, you guys want to read books and do other stuff. Like this is my relaxation time. I'm going to work
yeah.
and just work throughout that night. They came out the next
Oh,
morning. They're like, did you wake up early? And I was like,
jeez.
no. um, and so one of the factors is just we emphasized usefulness. No one is going to use something if it doesn't provide value to them,
Yeah,
and sometimes that's harder to estimate than we think. But as long as we had that as one of our core objectives was that this thing is going to be useful. And I think the two main things that made it useful was, number one, the fact that we made everything searchable.
mm,
So if you were in the manufacturing industry and you wanted to know what how the regulations affected you, you would search manufacturing and you would find some rule that doesn't seem to relate to you directly, but then when you read in it, okay, there's manufacturing, because we added tags to everything and we were more explicit about the industries that were affected. So the government regulations were a little bit ambiguous. They were vague. They just spoke about cool industries that do this general type of thing are subject to these rules. So
Yeah.
we went and said, okay, what are all the industries that fit in this general thing that regulation is saying, and let's name them by name, so no one's confused. This is speaking about you and your industry, and that helped a lot. And then the other thing was, of course, the red, amber, green sort of status of everything that made it super easy to see at an overview what you can and can't do. But the biggest thing that we wanted to do, and you'll notice if you use the app, we put all the green on top. And that just comes from, I think, the type of people that Adam and I are, and we like to emphasize positivity. So we're like, cool, everybody's thinking about what they can't do in lockdown.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we show them first and foremost what they can still do. And I think that also aided in it sort of going quite far. And literally what we did, we shared in a few WhatsApp groups, and those people shared it to their WhatsApp groups. And you always get they talk about if you work in tech, you've definitely heard of the concept of early adopters, but there's also a concept of evangelists.
Yeah.
And with any business that you do, you need to find both of those people. Sometimes they're the same group of people. And in this case, our evangelists and our early adopters were like Facebook mommies. I don't know how else to describe them. But those are the types of people who went and posted the link in their family groups. And anyone who was a mommy in that group decided to share it in their other family groups. And that's how it just had this viral effect, because they were our evangelists. And we didn't have to do anything to get them to do that, because we were playing into their needs in any case. And they saw it as useful.
Jeez, and how amazing how some people spend millions and millions of rands or dollars actually trying to, trying to on marketing and advertising their
Well,
products.
early on, we had an offer from Hippo who wanted
Yeah.
to buy the whole platform up from us because they saw the user base
Yes.
for 3 million rand. And that was a difficult one to say no to be honest.
A sacrifice well worth it by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, and she's I love its growth. I actually played around with the app, and I guess for me the biggest thing that stood out was how easy it is. I mean, it's like literally, and that's what you want. It's not rocket science using the app. So
Yeah.
never mind the
Yeah.
code that goes behind it as a techie and all that, but just how easy it is to use. I found that quite great actually. And I mean, I guess what we try to encourage, Ahren, is all developers out there, or even guys that are starting out, just learning how to code. It's not about the complexity of what you're trying to build. Just make sure that it really, and it's been said so many times, that it solves some problem. And so
Yeah.
that's definitely quite a big one. And talking about problems, we have many problems, as you'll know. One of them being the huge unemployment rate, and we'll tackle them obviously more a bit later on. But now, at one stage, I know that you actually were the director, in fact, of a nonprofit organization that was basically whose main focus was to assist the youth and the underprivileged in the Western Cape in coding, in learning how to code, basically become techies, right? My question to you is, I need to know what lessons you learned during that whole process, and also if there were any success stories, or what blockages, what blockers were there basically, because we live in a country that we do live in, and it's the same, it's similar in other parts of the world as well. But what I want to know is, how can we make it easier for us to take guys that are underprivileged, guys that have struggled for so long, and make sure that we bring tech to them so that they can actually really use it to thrive and succeed.
Yeah. So you've really done your research, eh? But yeah, so I started a nonprofit a while ago when I was actually still at university, and the idea was, this was when Raspberry Pi was quite a new, like, hot piece of technology, the cheapest computing chip out there. And I only saw this as an opportunity for us to bring technology into communities that don't traditionally have easy access to technology, because I thought it's so cheap, it's a tiny little chip. We can get a bunch of these. We can get some keyboards and mice and the peripherals, put this in a truck and we can literally travel from school to school, and we can go and provide lessons on how to code in Python or how to code in whatever. And I designed the syllabus in such a manner that it was actually teaching life orientation skills in what you would code. So for example, you had to code a web page that could do some functionality and tell you whether you're at risk of getting HIV or AIDS because of an action that you took, right? So my thinking behind this was, no child goes into LO excited to learn about LO. I certainly didn't. And pretty much what happens is everything that you're trying to teach there just falls flat or doesn't get listened to, or it gets ignored, or, it's regurgitated for the sake of regurgitation. Now, a lot of people, especially young people, are really excited about technology.
Yeah.
So you make the focus not about the LO, not about the HIV or anything you're learning. That's what you're implementing. What you're learning is code. Yeah. But what ends up happening is when you're doing that, you're ingesting, you have to learn your subject matter of what you're busy producing, what you're busy coding.
Yeah.
So that was the thought behind it. And I'll let you know very honestly, it was a huge failure. And you want to know why it was a failure?
Yes.
So I managed to somehow at university get a sponsor to sponsor all of the peripherals, all of the Raspberry Pis. And I had another stakeholder involved who had actually just ran a project to install computers at a bunch of schools in the Western Cape. So what they were saying was, you could actually just come to these places and run these classes because they have the computers, but they don't have any classes teaching programming or anything around them. They kind of have them in a library room, and they're there that they could be used, but they're being underutilized basically.
Yeah.
So I had those two stakeholders involved. And then I wanted to so I got a bunch of my friends who were studying computer science, and I got some other people who were studying computer science, and I got them to agree, okay, if we could drive you out, these communities might be a bit dangerous for you, coming from Camps Bay or whatever, your prissy community, and we'll pay you a stipend. So you could do tutoring at UCT, for example, and I think you get paid like 40 Rand an hour or whatever. So we would pay you something like that as a stipend, but that you would be doing something good for the communities. Now, in order to fund that, we needed a little bit of funding.
Yeah.
And I went to government, and this is where things went south. And this is where my lessons came from.
Yes.
Working with government was just not doable for me. I didn't have the connections that I needed to have.
You feel like you had to beg to get assistance to get the project going.
Yeah, but not only was it like, it would have been easier for me if it was a straight up no, right?
Yes,
but what ended up happening was it was a yes. It was a yes, let's go. But wait, yes, but wait, yes, but wait.
Yeah.
And every time we had to come up to, okay, actually getting the money or getting the funding to roll this program out. And we did do a few trial runs without that funding.
Yes.
But essentially it wouldn't be possible to do it without really securing the funding, and the waiting game is what killed the project.
Yeah.
And eventually I finished university, and I had to get a job.
Yeah.
My mom was very, very sick with cancer at the time, and she could, thank goodness I managed to finish where I did, because she could no longer afford, any tuitions, and in fact her own rent. So I had to take a job offer in Johannesburg, move up to Joburg, and get an apartment for myself, my mom, and my girlfriend. Just renting one out. So that was, life got in the way there. Time and life got in the way, and that's why the project failed. And this is still something that I would like to tackle, by the way. But the lesson that I learned, and the lesson that I realized, and I think a lot of South Africans again need to learn this lesson, is stop looking to government to solve your problems. The people who solve problems in South Africa, unfortunately at the moment, it's the private sector.
Yeah.
So I think the private sector has done way more good for communities through the programs that they run than what the government does right now. And I basically looked at myself and I said, cool, I am going to run some businesses. I'm going to try and make as much impact and do as much good as possible, but I need to make as much money as possible at the same time. Because once you have money, that enables you to do way more good.
Yeah.
because I'm never going to be stuck in a situation where I'm waiting for funding anymore. Well, hopefully that's the dream.
Yeah. Very, 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 very pertinent points that you raised. The waiting game. And I'm going to repeat
Yeah,
this one.
that kills it.
I thought that was huge. It's not that they said no, because I mean, a straight out no would have meant you'd have to go source out funding elsewhere. But it's that
Yeah.
waiting game where you are literally wasting time and not going anywhere. Shucks.
Mm.
Mm. Okay, so wow. Tell me something, Aaron. Where do you think technology is headed? Like, if you are starting out again, what would you focus on? Having studied or not having studied at all?
Great question. So, okay, now that last part that you put on throws another spin on it, and that's kind of like whether or not to study.
Yeah.
And I'll try and tackle that. But just to answer the question of where I think technology is going, I want to reiterate this is my opinion, and I'm not always correct. So, I think if I was starting again, or if I had to try and build a solution or a business in any direction, I would almost certainly choose the direction of climate change,
Mhm.
and I would certainly choose the direction of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm playing in the artificial intelligence space now and doing a lot of learning, and we've got a project that's working with artificial intelligence. But this is my advice to anyone else who's starting now.
Mm.
Um, and it's not only because climate change, for example, you're going to be doing a lot of good. Even if you don't give a shit about that,
Mm.
that's where all of the funding is going to go now,
Yeah.
because it is something that the world absolutely needs. And this comes again to, are you solving a need?
Mhm.
You don't need to worry about your company succeeding if you are solving for a need.
Yeah.
The world needs solutions around climate change. We need sustainable energy. We need, and this is where a lot of people get stuck in first order thinking as well, because now you go, okay, cool. The problem with climate change is we don't have reusable energies.
Mhm.
So do I need to go and start a solar farm or a wind farm? I don't have land. I don't have that capital. I don't. Okay, cool. I'm going to give up.
Yeah.
Take it to second order thinking and go, okay, cool. What do those people need?
Mm.
You know, do they need some sort of management? How can you make solar farming more efficient? How can you track where sun rays are at their strongest? And so now I'm really spitballing and going off on a rail here, because this is not my area of expertise. But there's always a lot of places that you can plug into and assist,
Yeah.
and build really cool technology that plays in a space that's not necessarily obvious.
Yeah.
You need to try and see what isn't obvious.
Mm.
And then you ask the question around studying, whether to study or not to study.
Yeah.
And this one might be a little bit controversial. And I've had a lot of conversations with my CS friends about this.
Mm.
I honestly don't think that if you want to become a programmer, that you need to go to university.
Yeah.
I think it helped me a lot, and it's helped a lot of my friends a lot in terms of understanding the theory.
Yes.
But I think the amount of information that's out there is incredibly expansive. And to be honest, the only reason why I came out of university and I was able to do so much and had so many opportunities, or took so many opportunities, is because I made those for myself. The university didn't give that to me. And I have a lot of friends who studied computer science who either couldn't get a job after university, or they had to start in a very, very junior role, or that, you know, they couldn't really go somewhere very quickly.
Yeah.
And the only way that I was able to bypass that is that every single VAC I was doing, I was doing internships, and I was doing learning, and I was doing building projects. So I learned a lot more about development by doing that than I did at university.
Yeah.
Now, university certainly has its place, don't get me wrong, especially, and this is why I'm saying very specifically to computer science, because I did a triple major, so I did business studies as well.
Yeah.
And 100% I would recommend people do that.
Business
That's
stuff.
somewhere where the theory is so helpful. Economics, business law, I learned things in there that I would never on my own stumble upon or learn. But development is something that you learn best by doing.
Yeah. Okay. So not to pitch you up against your friends, but what do you think they might have possibly been doing wrong? Those that weren't finding jobs in, because I mean they studied the same degree as you, but those that had studied computer science like you, that they ended up maybe falling by the wayside. Because some people even change careers just because they can't find their jobs.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is that the little tidbit that I shared about development is all about doing, and that's the only way that you learn.
Yeah.
Employers know that.
Yeah.
Employers 100% know that, and I know that by the companies that I've worked with now alongside, instead of trying to get a job through them.
Yeah.
And you're privy to a lot of conversations. I mean, Cuda's in the recruitment space, so we know a lot more about the recruitment now than I would have known when I was at university. So the thing that set me apart again is just that I was doing, and that I had something to show as soon as I exited varsity. I had a portfolio of projects. I had an understanding of some different, things that I had coded, and that's what they're really looking for. And I did internships. My first job that I got was based off an internship.
Yeah.
So I did an internship for a period, and they were like, cool, okay, we want to offer you a job. And that's how it comes out. So a lot of my friends that weren't doing that, what they were doing is every vac, they were going home and they were chilling, and they were, living good life. But that doesn't get you any further along your journey, or maybe your journey just takes a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess in many ways you were driven. You knew you had that purpose. You had purpose basically driving your direction, pushing you forward.
I don't want to say that, because
Yeah.
I think it's just about doing. Like, even if you don't have an internship, even if you don't have anything, if you've got a vac, if you've got some spare time,
Yeah.
think about a stupid project that you want to do and just do it. I think even this is a mistake that I made as well, is that I wanted to do something and I started coding it. And inevitably when you start, you're a noob, you don't know what's going on, and you can't code the thing that matches your dream of what you want. And that's very demotivating. And you might just give up at that point. I've got one or two projects that I did just give up on.
Yeah.
But what you need to just sort of manage your expectations of your own work, and sort of try and build everything in an MVP fashion. MVP stands for minimal viable product.
Yeah.
So if you have an idea for a new social network, which I'll already tell you is a bad idea, but go for it. Just try and build it. And even if it's simple, and even if it's stupid, just prove to yourself that you can finish it. Make finishing the goal rather than making $1 billion company the goal.
Yeah. Very, very important. Just getting started. So in our days though, Ahren, how would you go about building a tech company? Is it just a matter of registering it, and then just because by virtue of the fact that you've got the technical skills, you're like, hurrah, let me build something? Or is there more that goes into it?
Yeah, like I said, amazing questions, especially because you mentioned registering a business.
Yeah.
First mistake that anyone trying to start a business in South Africa can make is to start by registering it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because we've accounted in our law specifically for new businesses, for sole traders, and for any business that's doing under R1 million in turnover or in revenue per year. You don't need to register your business yet. So inevitably what you're doing by registering a business is making yourself feel better. You're not achieving anything. You're just making yourself feel like, oh, but I've gotten started. I've got a registered entity,
Yeah.
But if I ask you, how many customers do you have? How many sales are you making? That's a different question. So that's actually where I would start.
Yeah.
And where we start whenever we're doing any new idea, we always start with chatting to customers or potential customers at this stage. And then we start with...
Are we talking emails, calling them, or your Facebook moms?
Even just going into the store. So for Job Matcher, we're doing a B2B business model now. I'll speak about Job Matcher and explain the difference, but we just signed on bootleggers, and how that happened was I have a bootleggers near where I lived, and I just went there, spoke to the manager, asked them about their problems. I was like, well, we've got something that can solve it. Can you give me the connection to your manager? Let me speak to them. So you've got to be willing to literally go and knock on doors and just, to reach out to and speak to whoever you can. And really those conversations are only successful if you're genuinely interested in what are the problems that you're facing. And you don't even need to tell them that you're going to try and solve it. You just want to hear about it. You can be like an offloading ear. And then that helps inform how you can build your product. The next thing that we do is design.
Yeah.
So if you were to tell me right now that you had a problem, I don't know, getting red Adidas shirts, then we would go and we would design something in Figma, which is a tool that we use. There's XD, there's a whole bunch of other tools. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You design something that looks like a real system, and then you present that to the same people.
Yes.
So you go back to them and you say, hey, you told me about your problem. Just have a look at what I've got here. And for those who are not technically literate, they won't, or if you've done it well, they won't actually realize that what you're showing them is just screens.
Yes.
And you don't let them play around with it. You walk them through it. So the reason why this is so important is because if you did it the other way around, if you went and built the thing, and you went to that meeting and they were to say, no, that doesn't work for reasons X, Y, and Z, you'd have to go and recode the whole thing. But now you're just sitting on a design and you're showing them a design and you're saying, how does this look to you? Would you use it? What's your feedback? Like, what problems is it solving for you? What do you need out of here? You can get all of that feedback before you actually go and build. And that's a big lesson that we've learned over the past, 3 years. So we've made all the mistakes.
And job match and project cuda. Can you just explain to us briefly what problems they are attempting to solve?
So you're testing my ability to describe everything succinctly here because they're big, complex beasts. But I think if you have a look at all of the stuff that I've done, it just shows how, like, I'm so proud to be a South African, and I want to be producing things that solve South African problems and that really do something for the country as a whole. And so Lockdown Bozo was just a quick little thing. We're no longer involved in that, but that just helped South Africans, and really we didn't monetize that at all. We ended up making some money with a US entity that wanted a lookalike or whatever, which I'm happy about because, again, we're bringing foreign currency into the country. Now, Job Matcher and Project Cuda are each addressing an employment problem that we have from two different lenses. So Job Matcher, we're trying to address the problem of youth unemployment in the country. Youth unemployment is up over 50% at the moment. This is ridiculous. I can't believe more people are not absolutely freaking out about this, because this is the next generation of parents and of problem solvers that are sitting idle in your economy, and that's going to cause a much bigger problem in the long term. So I'll take you through the journey of what happened with Job Matcher. It was 3 of us at university, myself, Adam, and Nikki. We got together and we were like, this is the problem that we want to solve. We did a Flux International Business Games. And that was a weekend where we iterated on our solution, and we presented it then to a panel of influential people, and they voted on it, and the people voted on it as well. And this panel were all for our idea. We were like, we weren't the people's favorite, but we were the panel's favorite. And we thought this is a sign that this is something that we really could do, that we really could make into an impactful business that's also profitable, which I think those are the 2 keys for any new business in South Africa that really wants to succeed and do good for the country. Don't be shameful about saying that you want to make a profit. Because
it's a business.
You need to. Like, that's how you do good. That's how Tesla's doing good. That's how SpaceX is, planning to take us. You need to be able to not be shy about saying you're making profit as well. And the initial app was set to be like a customer to customer type of app. That was a platform for skills. So if we looked at the problem of, one day I was in my apartment and I had a long day at work. I was supposed to plan some Valentine's Day stuff. I'm busy trying to prep some food for my girlfriend. And there was a pile of dishes. And I was like, fuck, I don't have time to do these dishes. Now I need to go and get somebody to help me with this thing. I can't do it quickly, easily. I can't facilitate payment. How do I know that I can trust anyone that I get? And that's a good example of where a platform or technology can solve problems like that. and Uber did it very well with taxis. So we made a platform where you could hop on as a provider or a employer. One person doesn't have to specifically be only one or the other. And we thought that was part of the beauty of the platform. So if I had a Bucky, for example, I could use the platform to hire people to do tasks for me, mow my lawn, pack some boxes, do some things. And I could also myself be a provider if somebody needed a Bucky to drop some stuff off. I could partake on both sides of the platform.
Yeah.
And we made it like a Tinder for jobs. So essentially, you literally do look at jobs in a card format and you swipe through them back and forth. I like this one, I don't like this one. And that connects people. So if they swiped on you as a provider and you swiped on their job, it's like, hey, you guys are a good match. Both of you are interested in each other. You can match straight away. And that took a lot of time, took a lot of coding. We were still very new to coding. We made a lot of developmental mistakes. One of them was that we built before we chatted to our customers, and we iterated and learned on that journey as we went along. And we launched in February of 2020, actually. We launched properly at UCT, actually.
And take it back home.
Yeah. Well, we thought a good place to start off, even though we really wanted to impact the communities that needed it the most. Our early adopters, again, coming back to that phrase, our early adopters would be university students because they want to make some extra cash. They've all got smartphones at their disposal and they've all got internet, right? And, that's one of the barriers that we had in servicing a more impoverished community is access to devices. Again, coming to, everything ties in, but we did that. We did about 273 jobs within the first month of launch. And remember, I said this was Feb. So what happened in March was COVID hit. And our entire platform now was predicated on people matching and meeting up and doing jobs. And our most successful vertical was in promotions, which is obviously linked to events. So that's where people go and they do promotions on alcohol or Dairy Bell or whatever. They go in stores. Sometimes they go to bars. Like that's a very good university job, very common university job. And now none of that even existed anymore.
Yeah.
So we've now pivoted the model into being more of an edutech platform and being B2B. So what I mean by that is we are servicing businesses first and foremost. We're not going to individual customers. We're going to a whole business, solving a big problem for them. And so we have a platform now that we're busy working very hard to get as much content on as possible. When I say content, I mean learning courses. So that'll be waitering 101, call center 101, professional communications, Excel, like how to do specific tasks and things. And we have all of the Job Matcher 101 training is absolutely free.
Nice.
So it's going to be an edutech platform for people just to learn or to experiment with new jobs that they think they could do. And a lot of these courses are going to be offered by companies. Like I already mentioned, we signed up Bootleggers.
Yes.
So Bootleggers already has training that they give to all of their people when they're on board. We turn that into a digitized course, and we have e-learning specialists that make sure that this is formatted in the way that it deals with the best retention and people will learn in the most efficient way. Now what Bootleggers can do when they want to hire a new barista is they can go and look who's done our barista course and let's pick from there. And then we can hire some people. And then that person, once they get hired, can then move up in the ranks because we've got courses on how to be a manager. Now we push you that course. So we're trying to build a pathway so that you can not only get an entry point into a business, but you can also grow and evolve in that business or, somewhere else as well. So that's Job Matcher. I feel like I've been talking a lot now, but I still need to cover cuda.
You made it quite clear. So I guess I like that whole barista example that you gave as well, because you see the growth, and also the people that actually register for the app are at an advantage in that, in as much as they may have been throwing their CVs all over the place, Now there's a platform that allows them, basically brings them that much closer to a potential employer, and especially the more companies you start to partner with. So I think that's quite cool. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, and that's their digital CV. So yeah, and that also came from, we were trying to solve this issue of jobs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a very complex, difficult problem, and part of
Difficult.
that problem is education in South Africa. So we thought, okay, cool. If we can solve the education problem, then we can start to tackle the job problem,
Yeah.
and that's just access to relevant, good training and material that will practically get you a job, because
Yeah.
everything that you learn at university or at even through high school is not necessarily preparing you for a job, for a
Yeah.
particular job.
Opens your eyes more than anything.
Yeah, cool. And then cuda. So cuda's very, very exciting at the moment. So cuda is also doing good for South Africa in that we have a big problem in brain drain in South Africa. So typically what happens is once people in South Africa become skilled to a certain level, they leave.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time that is because of opportunity, because of finances. And at the same time, there's a massive growth in the gig economy and the freelancer economy. So a lot more people are opting to be freelancers and have their own flexible time. So we partnered with Clark House Human Capital, who's been doing recruitment at the highest levels, C-suites, CEOs, CFOs, executives, for a long time. They sort of looked at job match and they were like, how can we tackle this on the high end of the market? And that's the basis of Project CUDA. But what it does now is we're a platform specifically for freelancers. And our message is you can, first of all, be a freelancer and earn money, because a lot of people, it's a scary jump to make.
Mhm.
But number two, you can stay in South Africa and you can earn pounds or you can earn dollars, because that's where a lot of our clientele come from. They need expertise and they need it a little bit cheaper than what it is in their market. We
Yeah.
have the same skill sets here, but because of the exchange rate, it works out immediately. If you're talking about the dollar, it's immediately 25% cheaper to hire anyone in South Africa for the same level of skill. And for South Africans, we're bringing dollars into the country, which is already, first of all, good, but second of all, it's worth way more to you, so you can live a higher standard of living, because that's how you bring in currency. So we're building tools to make life easy for them. I think you used the calendar tool to book my time at one stage.
Yeah.
So we've got a calendar tool that's competing with Calendly.
Yeah.
Calendly is like a meeting scheduling tool based in the US. I think they're over $100 million valuation right now. We're just starting out, and we'd really like to compete with them in that vertical. And otherwise, we've got CUDA Connect,
Yeah.
which allows you to connect with an expert instantly. And this is something that was like really, really like a light bulb switch happened for us, because if you need to speak to a lawyer or an accountant or somebody with a very niche skill set, it's difficult to find the right person. They charge a shitload of money, and sometimes you just have a few questions. You might not be a big business that has a project for a lawyer to tackle, or a court case that you need to, you just have some questions.
Yeah.
Fuck, man, like, do I need to worry about that? Is that a thing?
No,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
I just want to ask like a tax expert about it, or
Yeah. Do I need to register my business?
my maybe
They'll,
you're a startup and your first ever customer is from the UK. Now you're like, oh, there's some forex changes happening. Are there things that I need to worry about? So with CUDA Connect, you can book someone for just a 45-minute session at a cheaper rate than what hiring them out on a consulting rate would be. And you can pump and use that 45 minutes, prepare your questions beforehand. We've had a company that actually got a whole boardroom full of people, and they booked someone's time for 45 minutes and they just bombarded this expert with questions, because this person's just sharing their knowledge. They're not doing they're not doing project work for you. So for them, they can offer a cheaper rate, and their time is money. They should get paid for that money. We had a startup, the data agency, who used a lawyer on our platform. And he said, dude, I've been looking for a lawyer for 2 weeks. I found one with you guys instantly, booked his time instantly. And it cost me $1,000 and I got all my questions answered. That was super worth it.
No need to
And that's the
drive
kind of
there.
success,
Yeah.
that's the kind of success stories that we want to hear.
It's actually quite a good idea and a very practical as well. I'm actually impressed by the guys that actually set up a whole boardroom and literally just that
Me
was
too.
quite,
I was like, you got
they're on
it.
another
Gaming the
level.
system here.
And especially in this age where you all know knowledge really is power. I mean, yet the mercy,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, so that's quite a cool one. And then, Ahren, you've accomplished quite a lot. Businesses, platforms,
Thank
as
you.
I mentioned, GQ. But for me, something that stuck out was the fact that you were able to get to a point where you were able to buy your mother a house. Take us through that, because
Yeah.
now that's quite a huge one. That is a huge one. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. That was a huge one for me too. And I must say, I think that will stand the test of time in being one of my happiest achievements and something that I've always wanted to do. So I set a goal for myself when I was 18 that I wanted to buy my mom a house before I turned 25.
Nice.
And I managed to do it just in time. But where that really came from was just, I, I grew up in a home with a single mom and two sisters, so she was raising three children. She didn't have tertiary education. She came from a relatively poor background.
Yeah.
My father was not in the picture, so there was no support from that side. And I really just grew up admiring my mom for how much she had managed to achieve and how hard she worked to ensure that we were provided for. I think I realized a lot more later on in life that, finances in life was a lot more constricted than I realized. And I didn't realize because she did it so well, and she took it in her stride and really worked hard. So I definitely benefit from a lot of white privilege, but financially, not as much as would be cool. um, and she really is like one of the people that I look up to a lot. And things happened later on in life that meant she got her dream house at one stage and had to give it up
Oh, is it?
because yeah. So she had to sell the house because of financial constraints, and I said no. Um, I want to get her a house, and I want to work hard, and I want to get to that point. Um, and I did it strategically. I think if I had jumped into only doing startups from the get-go, I also wouldn't be in that financial position. So I worked in full-time employment, and I did that for a while to ensure that was a possibility. But it's also just she's the one who raised me. She's the one who gave me my education. She sacrificed so much for me. A house doesn't even begin to repay the debt that I have, to my mother. So really, it's all her. Like, I don't think anyone should look at that and say like, oh, I've done such a great thing. She earned that. That is hers.
Yeah, you mentioned. I mean, and I just hope you don't lose that. That whole one of your Instagram pics actually. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier on, but the one where you're lifting a kid while they're training, which speaks of lifting others up. Jeez, I was looking at it, I was like, geez, man.
Yeah.
I wish just that pic alone captures how we should all be basically operating and just living our lives. So thinking to myself, Ahren, I'm like, you doing that for your mother. I hope it also translates to everyone else, where even in your businesses and the guys that work with you, that's the ethos or almost culture of everyone that you basically come into contact with. That whole idea of lifting them up like that. I just saw that pic as almost,
Definitely.
I don't know, it almost feels like something that should be out there, like for South Africans especially, to show us what we should all be doing for each other, making sure that we rise.
No, I was actually a little bit embarrassed with that picture. I wasn't sure if I should post it or not because I happened to be shirtless in the picture.
No, but
But
obviously
yeah,
a lot of training, so.
so my girlfriend and I went to Sea Point Promenade, and we were just like messing around, just doing some gymming there. And these three little children came along,
Yeah.
and they were very clearly not there with parents or anything. They were like street children, but they just wanted to be in that space, and they wanted to like gym with me as well. So it was actually just such a cool experience, and that's why I had to post it and share it. Is that a lot of South Africans, or especially the really, really young, are looking for mentors, and they're looking for people to show them the right way. And 99% of South Africans, or maybe 95% of South Africans, are really good people. I believe that you're a great person, and everyone that I interact with is a good person, but we're not acting accordingly, or we're not sharing that with people. And then what happens is the only mentors, or the only people that they can look up to, is some of the people that may be in the community. The reason why I'm mentioning this specifically is because one of the children went up to my girlfriend and said, "Wow, like, does he hit you?"
Jeez. Yo.
That was the first thing he said. And we were like blown away. We were like, why is this this kid is like 6 years old. Why is that the first thought that he has? This is so sad. And this, I mean, that plays into what she's doing, and she's playing in the gender-based violence space, heading up Fight Back SA.
Yeah.
But it was such a nice experience to just spend some time with them, do some gymming, and sort of show them that you gym, or you can train because you're trying to improve yourself. You're not doing it so that you can overpower another human
Anyone.
being, or so that you can beat someone, or so that you can be intimidating and scary. If anything, you're doing it so that you can be more of a protector, and of your family, and of of the people around you.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So sad that that's the first thing that the kid would think of. And you're right about the mentorship. I think you mentioned percentages as well. I think that's the biggest problem in South Africa, is that maybe not South Africa, but maybe just a worldwide problem, in that everyone is in their little cocoon, and
Yeah.
not necessarily because they feel anywhere but other people, but sometimes it's just out of fear, because you don't want to be that person now that steps out and
For sure.
you hang your neck out there too wide only to get shut down. And you find that
Yeah.
if I truly believe, I'm just going to use our country, like I said, South Africa for now. If everyone in South Africa was able to find someone that they can mentor, especially with what we do in tech, and just speak that little bit of information or those pieces of advice, because even with this platform, this channel, what I'm hoping for is that after watching this episode, guys can say, I can do that, but be practical about it, not be like, I can do that, because
Yeah.
you had to sacrifice a lot to get to the position that you are in today. So them to watch this and to think to themselves, hang on, but Ahren did this and this and this to get to where he is. Or even worse, what I'm hoping for, Ahren, excuse me for getting in trouble, but I would love for people to actually spam you and try email you, find your email, hunt your email and be like,
Yeah.
no, no. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
just give me guidance. Even if it's, we know your time
Yeah.
is I mean, you're working on businesses and platforms, so you're quite a busy guy. But I mean, what I want is for people to start thinking like that. I've got to hunt this guy down, like literally, to make sure.
Well, that's why I love interacting with people like you, because that's exactly what you're doing. And I love people who are doing what you're doing, because what you're trying to do is share those learnings, share that knowledge, because knowledge is power, exactly like you said. And by you just doing this little thing, not only are you going to learn a lot, because I've seen some of the other people that you spoke to, and I've looked at your channel, but you're sharing that information with absolutely everybody else, and they have the opportunity to learn from people who've made those sacrifices, learned their lessons, and made mistakes as they went along. So kudos to you as well for doing this.
Thank you very much. And you also raised another awesome point, I must say, in the fact that not only am I sharing this, not it's almost as it's one of those things where I don't know, Ahren, when you started out in business and building platforms, but in my case, it's like I'm telling the people, I'm showing the people, this is what I'm doing, this is the YouTube I'm doing. Try replicate it, try something. Because don't come someday and this platform has blown up even more, and to say, but how did he do it? It's because he did this and this. But no, it was just merely from having conversations with people like yourself and picking up little pieces of information, little jewels, and actually applying them to my life. So I'm telling everyone else, this is what I'm doing. Just do the same. And really, so that's what I'm hoping, because in the broader sense of thinking, this platform is merely just something to encourage someone that's saying, I'm stuck, I'm jobless, I don't know what to do. I'm just hoping that because there are many discouraged people in SA even,
Yeah.
but it's just for someone to say, I don't know what to do, I'm stuck. At least let me watch it. Let me see who's this Ahren guy. Let me just see. Let me just see what he's done. Let me watch. Oh, he's done this and this and this. He managed to do this just based on his hard work and work ethic. Then I'm surely I can replicate that. But where do I start? And that's just what I'm hoping people can take away. So on that note, though, Ahren, any last pieces of advice that you can give to guys that literally have given up? Let's just say that.
Any advice to people who have given up?
Yeah.
So I want to say one thing almost on something else
Yeah.
that you brought up, and I think it's an important lesson as well. Is as much as you need to be giving to others, something
Yeah.
that's important as well is to recognize that you can't pour from an empty cup. Is
Yeah.
that sort of the saying that gets shared around with the piece of knowledge? You have to fill your own cup first and give to others what flows over.
Yeah.
And that's really, like, I think that comes from The Secret, actually, which is scattered with bits of really good information and a little bit of like bullshit. But
You put
that's one of the really good findings.
Yeah.
I've seen people before in life who almost have like a bleeding heart,
Yeah.
and that will give literally the clothes off their back for anyone else, and it's very admirable. But what ends up happening is that you give until you have nothing, and then you have nothing to give, which means you actually give less. It's like, it's not intuitive, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing as much good in the world as you could because you were trying to do good. Do you know what I mean? So it's at some point as well, you've got to first try and bolster your position, and focus on yourself first. Don't be scared to do that. Like, if you're saying to family members or friends, like, look, hold up, I need to give up a little bit of this family time because I'm busy working on myself right now. I'm busy working on a project that I'm passionate about, or I'm focusing on my career, I'm focusing on my job. Do that, because what's going to happen is you're going to climb the ladder in your job, or you're going to find success in your startup, or you're going to get somewhere. And once you're there, you have so much more to give because you're in a position of power. Maybe you have a little bit more, finance backing you, so you can give without putting yourself in a compromising position. And maybe you just have a lot more opportunity to connect people to other routes. So that was the one thing that I just wanted to reiterate on there, because we did speak a lot about giving. I just want to make sure that I don't give people a false perception as well. You need to try and put yourself first in many cases.
Yeah. Cool. And the last pieces of advice as well, just to.
Oh, the last piece of advice to anyone who's given up.
Yeah.
If you've given up, then you're not doing well. The first key to success is never give up. So so that's already a bad start. But I'd say if you're someone who's given up, or let me say somebody who's directionless.
Yeah.
Like, you're not really sure what direction to go. Maybe you've applied for a few jobs and you're not getting a few jobs. Try and do something yourself. Look for opportunity, look for a problem to solve, and think first about solving the problem, second about how to monetize that. It sounds stupid and basic, very, very basic in fact, but a lot of people do it the other way around. They try and think about, or almost simultaneously, when they're trying to look at how can I make money solving this problem, whereas you should be saying, how can I solve this problem first? Stop there. Let me first try and solve it. Once I've solved it, then let me think about how to monetize that. And if you look at a lot of the tech platforms that have absolutely blown up in the recent decade, you'll see that that's the exact philosophy that they took on. WhatsApp wasn't charging any of their customers. They solved the problem first and foremost. Then Facebook bought them out for billions. Their revenue was next to nothing. And that it's just from that philosophy of, let me first solve a problem and I'll figure out how to make money from it later. Yeah.
So in the meantime, then I would assume those individuals, they must at least have a job or something, because you would also need a bit of money to, while you're not making money trying to solve the problem, you need something. I mean, savings or whatever else.
Well, I mean, just hustle, man. I think, look, when I was at university, I was very, very privileged in that my university fees could be covered, but
Yeah.
I had no other space for money, right? And there's a lot of other things that come along with just existing at university. You need to eat, you need to pay rent. You know, I'm not going to lie, going out with friends is a thing in university. It's part of the experience, or it's part of living a human life. You've got to try and be social.
Yeah.
And I funded that by hustling. I used to buy and resell things on Gumtree.
Yeah.
I used to do odd jobs whenever I could. Would do side jobs. So that's something that I think literally you're not going to saturate the market if absolutely everyone is doing that. And that's part of just like trying to be entrepreneurial. And that's why I'm saying solve a problem first and monetize it later. That doesn't mean that you're not doing something that creates some financial, flow, but you need to be less concerned about how much money it's making you, and first solving the problem. But yeah, if you're talking about someone who is in a position where you're absolutely desolate, you need money right away, and you need to try and grow, then I would say the first step is, if you're watching this video, you're already in the right step. Ingest as much content as you can. Look at Gary Vaynerchuk, listen to podcasts, learn as much as you can from YouTube and all of the free platforms that you can. There's going to be a lot of important lessons there. Try and do that in a way that it doesn't waste your time. So listen to these podcasts while you're on a long commute, or while you're doing some work, or while you're achieving something else. Give up TV or any activities that are not being productive, and then find ways to hustle if you just need to make money. So there's a lot of opportunity in just seeing offices are closing now. Here's a great example. I needed to give something practical and actionable, because otherwise I wouldn't have been happy with myself.
Yeah.
COVID has happened. So many offices are closing, retrenchments are happening. What's the opportunity there? Furniture. Offices have lots of furniture, lots of things that they need to get rid of.
Yeah.
Very often you can get that for next to nothing. We just bought a new office space in Woodstock, and we managed to get all our desks for 700 Rand a desk, because it was an office closure sale. If you don't know anything about the price of desks, that's super cheap. Desks cost like 4,000 Rand.
Yeah.
So find something like that, buy them and resell them. Find another client. If you're going to take the riskier but smarter approach, you could even find your client first, get them to pay you, then you use that money to go and buy the desk and then deliver it to them. That's something that Grant Cardone sort of advocates for. He's another person that you can look up. So that would be my practical advice.
Awesome. On that note, Ahren, thank you very much for giving us some of your time. I really believe this was a very, very insightful session, and practical too, which I really enjoyed. I mean, just those pieces of jewels that if used together, will actually make a difference to anyone out there. As I said earlier on, the main purpose of the platform is to make sure that people stand up, really. And I've been just talking to someone that stood up for most of his life, from varsity all the way till now. And I see, I don't know, maybe whether it's my screen, but I'm just seeing from your eyes the hunger that you're still going to continue pushing and grinding. It doesn't, you know, towards the end.
It's just the start.
Exactly. You don't have that look in your eyes that says just now, or because COVID, or because it's a pandemic. You've got that look that says, I'm running anyway. I'm running regardless. So thank you very much for your time. And I'm hoping, Ahren, that in the future, there'll be many, many more interviews as interesting as this one, and that you continue actually to mentor some of the guys that are also coming up, that look up to guys like yourself, that are doing it.
Likewise. And thank you so much for having me here. Thank you for doing your research and asking some really, really interesting questions. I had so much fun talking about these topics. Like I said to you earlier, I've done a few interviews in the past where, it could be really mundane, or, so props to you. Really good interviewer, really do your research. So keep on doing what you're doing, because I see you also going places.
Thank you very much. On that note, guys, thank you for joining us on this episode of Tech with Jabs. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.